So it is very good to be back after a month of study in Jerusalem. I have missed you, and I'm grateful to Temple leadership for supporting my participation in this 3-year fellowship at the Hartman Institute. And I'm grateful to my colleagues for holding down the fort and minding the shop while I was away, very ably, I should say. And when people ask me, how was Israel, I feel a little bit short of good answers, because the truth is, I really was just at the Hartman Institute campus and back and forth to my apartment in the neighborhood. So I can't say how Israel was, how Israel is, but I can tell you what my experience was like there, those long days of study from morning to night. It was delightful. It was a kind of retreat into sacred text, a retreat into a world of rabbinic teachers and scholars, a chance to connect with colleagues from across the streams of Jewish life, from across North America, and some from Israel as well. It's going to take me some time to unpack what I learned and to figure out how to share it with you. It's also going to take me some time to reflect on what I experienced there, including the loss of our beloved Rabbi Dov Marmor. Many of us gathered just before the service for a wine and cheese to welcome Rabbi McCarroll and Rabbi Kay, and I heard many people eager to share their stories of Rabbi Marmor, eager to share their memories of him and how they influenced him. And those are congregants of all ages who have those stories to share. And I delight in every one of those stories, and I want to tell you that the Marmor family does too. They took great comfort in knowing that more than 1,000 people attended the funeral online. The congregations that he served long ago have not forgotten him. So if you have a moment to fulfill the mitzvah of nichum avelim, of comforting the mourners, I urge you, please, just jot down that memory and send it off to the Marmor family. I promise they will take great comfort in hearing how you remember him and how he influenced you. The opening session at the Hartman Institute this summer was with Rabbi Daniel Hartman himself, and he focused on a mitzvah that is often overlooked because of its context. Taken alone, it's very powerful. 3 words, lo tuchal lehit alem, usually translated as you shall not remain indifferent. That is an enormous mitzvah. It is so easy to be indifferent. We just have to turn our face a centimeter or 2. The context, however, is what makes this mitzvah a bit surprising. It is written that when a neighbor's ox or sheep has gone astray, you must not ignore it. And the same is true for your neighbor's garment or anything that she loses and you might happen to find. Lo tuchal lehit alem, you shall not remain indifferent. So why do we need this mitzvah? Because it is so easy to change the channel. We do it all the time. It is so easy to close our eyes, to close our ears. God says the very fact that another person exists in the world obligates you to them. Full stop. In the Bible, God is almost never indifferent. God gets angry, regretful, resentful, sometimes even violent, but God does not ignore anyone. God sees us all, God hears it all, and God says, I know you are only human, but you must strive to be like me, who is not indifferent. Pay attention. see, hear, feel it all. And I have to say, there is something about life in Israel that opens me up to this mitzvah in a way that life in the diaspora doesn't quite. Do you know what I mean? There's an intensity to life in Israel. It is almost impossible to be indifferent. Everyone is in each other's business. Everyone has an opinion. When I lived in Israel for 2 years as a student on and off, I was tired at the end of each year from all that intensity and ready to come back to the pace of life in the diaspora. Now, the pace of life at Holy Blossom Temple is plenty intense, don't get me wrong. But there is something refreshing about the intensity of life in Israel and the intensity of Israelis. Rabbi Hartman tells us that Torah is meant to train us in how to walk through the world without indifference. Lo tuchal להתעלם literally means something like, you shall not allow for people to be made invisible. And one way that we practice this, one way that we train up, is Shabbat. On Shabbat, every seventh day, without fail, we are given a chance for all the distinctions between peoples to fade away. Master and servant, rich and poor, no one works on Shabbat, and so we are all the same. Shabbat is the great equalizer. And every Shabbat, according to the Ten Commandments and according to the Kiddush, which we will recite in just a few moments, is a celebration of God's seeing the unseen. God saw the suffering of the slaves in Egypt. God heard the cry of the ignored. So this Shabbat and every Shabbat is not only a day to celebrate the fact that we are free people, but to celebrate that we are seen, that we are heard, because we know how it feels to go unnoticed. We know how it feels to be overlooked, and then to be seen. So must we use Shabbat to heighten our own awareness, to sharpen our own abilities to be moved by the condition of others. The pandemic has done a number on us. For 2.5 years and counting, we have been trained to do just the opposite. We've been told to go into lockdown, to turn inward, to narrow our scope, to focus on ourselves and those nearest to us, and we did. Out of necessity, we did. But that is not sustainable. That is not healthy. That is not God-like. To be tuned out, to be cut off from one another, it is not enough for us. Lo tuchal להתעלם. So let us take a page from our brothers and sisters in Israel. Let us be willing to get a little bit in everyone else's business, to notice, to have an opinion, to help even when we aren't called on to help. When I was picking out candlesticks for my niece who is newly engaged, the owner of the shop had an opinion, right? This is my wish for us this Shabbat, that we will lean into family, we will lean into community and congregation, we will lean into neighborhood and country and see the unseen and hear what has not yet been heard well enough or often enough. And then we can make real on the promise of the 3 words which we will say tomorrow as we conclude the book of Numbers, Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek. Be strong, and let us strengthen one another.